Sup guys? Today we're going to be finding out, finally, exactly how good Yorktown is. Not just how I feel, but pretty much as close as you can get to knowing exactly how she's going to perform without being given a specific fight with specific mechanics. I'm specifically comparing the duo of Hakuryuu and Shinano to Yorktown and Enterprise, because obviously Shinano and Hakuryuu were the best pairing before Yorktown's release, while Yorktown and Enterprise's strengths line up pretty well, creating a formidable duo themselves. Of course, there are other viable fleet compositions, but as far as finding two ships that will do the most amount of damage for a given enemy, these two duos will probably be it for almost all cases. Just like the Hakuryuu vs Enterprise tests that I did, I've taken their first airstrike damage against the EX boss and used that to extrapolate more information. For more context, you should probably watch that video first. I will now show the equipments on screen, starting with the IJN duo. And I put the 81 Skyraider on Hakuryuu because she has a stronger dive bomber slot. Since the plane is so slow though, she has to replace one of her catapults with a beacon so that she doesn't fall too far behind Shinano's airstrike cooldown. You want them to be close together so that Shinano can take advantage of Haku's debuff. And as for the USS duo, Enterprise has a stronger dive bomber slot than Yorktown, so I've given her the 81 Skyraider. But since Yorktown does need a USS plane in order to activate her skill, I had to put the HE rockets on her for the fighter slot. This should result in higher damage in total though. Also, even though Enterprise is using the 81, she does not have to take a beacon since Yorktown's accelerated airstrike buff will make sure that she launches right after Yorktown. But they don't have any buffs or debuffs on airstrike anyway, so it's not really a huge deal. And now we can get into the results. I will also publish this sheet in the description. So as always, if you take a look at the raw results, it does not look favorable whatsoever for the USS duo, but there is quite a lot of processing we have to do to get a better picture. So the first thing to notice is that Hakuryuu got an increase of about 18% from adding Shinano's buffs, and this is despite replacing her catapults with a beacon. And this is actually underrepresented since the accuracy portion doesn't come into play, and Shinano can apply one more layer of debuffs on her next airstrike. After adjusting for Hakuyu's Siren Killer as well as Flame and Ammo buff for both ships, these are the figures we end up with. Next, we have the USS duo, and Yorktown skills are not completely maxed yet, but it's not too difficult to do an estimation of what it would look like if they were maxed. So first I removed Flame as well as the ammo buff and also the skill level 6 Yorktown buff, which is currently at 6%. And then I added back the 10% Yorktown buff that it would be if the skill was maxed. Since her skill 2 is at level 7, she's missing just 3.5% aviation. This 3.4% aviation will obviously result in less than 3.4% final damage, but I will just give her 3.4% since it won't change the conclusion anyway. As for the accuracy portion of the buff, they will come into play when I do the hit rate calculations. And as you would expect, Enterprise gained almost exactly 5% bonus damage from Yorktown's buff, going from 200% bonus damage to 210%. So if we go by the assumption of 100% hit rate, we can see that the IJN duo is actually ahead of the USS duo even on medium armor. But that is pretty unrealistic because hit rates do matter in this game, so now we will factor in those as well. And I reused the same well-known medium armor bosses from the last video, and calculated the hit rates of each ship against them. As for the accuracy stats, I took the level 125 accuracy stat on the wiki and I adjusted for Oath, added 14 from Fleet Tech, and then multiplied it by their accuracy bonuses. And finally, after applying all their hit rates and totaling up all of the damages, they actually end up essentially tied. And before going into the final takeaways, notice that Hakuyu's increase from Shinano goes from about 18 to up to 23% when accuracy becomes more of a factor, and this is without the fully ramped debuff from Shinano. And now for the final takeaways. Just because their damage output is about the same doesn't mean that they are equally as good, because the damage numbers are taken from only the first round of airstrikes, and any fleet with Shinano will have stronger airstrikes from the second one onwards. Next, I did give Yorktown a 3.4% bonus damage increase, even though her 3.4% extra aviation probably doesn't amount to 3.4% bonus damage, but this is one of the smaller concerns. The biggest deciding factor comes down to the fact that Shinano and Haku both have damage taken increase debuffs, so the USS duel would have to deal a pretty significant amount more in order to make up for those debuffs. There is a saving grace though for the USS duo in that if you can take advantage of New Jersey's cross-fleet buff, it will give them more than 10% bonus damage. Also, since both the IJN carriers have lower evasion as well as timed barrages that increase their detection gauge, if there's a fight where the USS carriers can remain hidden while the IJN carriers can't, they will definitely pull ahead. This will depend entirely on the enemy though. Also to keep in mind is that I'm assuming Enterprise is getting 100% procs on her Lucky E, so on average the IJN carriers will be much stronger. So in conclusion, it's actually pretty impressive the way that the devs managed to balance these carriers, in that the USS carriers are better against light armor, while the IJN ones are better against heavy, but they can both be good on medium depending on the enemy. If we don't take into consideration that the USS carriers will remain concealed more often than the IJN carriers, then the IJN ones do win by quite a bit because of their debuffs as well as the fact that they deal more damage on their subsequent airstrikes. And since we found out in the last episode that Enterprise with 100% proc rate can perform above Haku, it just speaks to how much above the rest of the competition Shinano is. That despite their inferior loadouts against medium armor, they still win out just because of the amount of damage buffs that she provides. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you found it informative, and I will see you in the next one.